The SEC is not out on expansion.
Catching up with LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier.
Summer League, the standouts, who's been good.
The latest Jordan Addison incident, arrested for suspicion of DUI over the weekend. NFL rookies are heading to training camp this week.
The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Dodgers have a home run derby champion. It's Teoscar Hernandez.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast.
As soon as Teoscar was announced, I was all in on Teo. I like the swing profile. He has, as I said on my show earlier, he has that like dad strength. He has like man strength. And that combined with Dino throwing him some cookies was a match made in heaven.
It was awesome. And, that prediction reminds me, my buddy Sully, who hosts the Locked On MLB podcast here on the Locked On Network, he used to have a running gag where every morning he would tweet, I predict that today, insert name of Padres starting pitcher, will throw the first no-hitter in Padres history. And then when what's his name? What's that guy's name?
Musgrove.
When Joe Musgrove finally did, Sully went and deleted all the previous tweets and just left up the one from that day. And so he was right. I predicted today Joe Musgrove will throw the first no-hitter in Padres history. Sully nailed it, and you nailed it with Teo. Sometimes being a homer pays off, And
yeah, I mean, you're right 100% of the time that you just look at the time you were right or something.
Exactly.
Like whatever Michael Scott said.
Yeah, Michael Scott and Wayne Gretzky need to get together again and talk about Teoscar Hernandez because, it was. I thought this was a great home run derby. I was a big fan. Let's talk about the format changes. I actually didn't pay any attention to what the format changes were going to be. I had heard that there were some changes, had no idea coming in what they were going to be. I think I loved every single change they made. Did you?
Yeah, so I did the Cliff Notes reading, an hour before Dodgers territory earlier, and I was like, that sounds like fun. Admittedly, I didn't get to watch a whole lot of the Derby because I was streaming during the Derby, so I'm kind of looking down on my phone. But it seemed like a lot of fun. There's variations to the rounds. It's not just throw as many pitches as you can and get off as many dingers as you can. By all accounts, people seem to really, really enjoy it, and hey, I guess it worked out for the Dodgers as well with that Teo bringing home that trophy. I love that trophy, by the way. Great trophy.
It's a good one, yeah. I just realized people are going to call this a Mickey Mouse home run derby win because it was the new rules. Oh, man, people are so jealous of the Dodgers.
Bring it.
I really liked when they changed the rules, 5 or 6 years ago, went to the timed rounds. And because it used to be, you remember, it was just you get 10 outs. Yeah. Anything you swing at that's not a home run is an out, you get 10 outs. And so, Josh Hamilton went off. Robinson Cano went off. And if you get on a streak, so I liked when they changed it to the timed round. It made a little bit more sense of urgency. But I liked that they brought back the old thing just for the bonus round where you get the 3 outs. So it was a good mix of both formats. And I love I really liked the changes they made a handful of years ago, except I hated that you had to wait for the ball to land to throw the next pitch.
That was
so the nice thing here, it's because there's a time limit and a number of pitches, they didn't worry about that. And there's no longer an umpire standing back there holding up his hand. You just, hey, you ready for the next pitch? Here I go. I thought that was a great improvement. I thought, everything, I thought it was awesome. The only quibble I saw on social media was somebody saying that one of the changes I liked was that the first round was just the top 4 guys. It's not head-to-head in the first round. Yes. Top 4 guys move on in the second round, and then they go to head-to-head. Somebody on Twitter was telling me they wish that the second round had been the same thing. Just, okay, now the top 2 guys go to the finals. I kind of liked the head-to-head aspect in the second round. I felt like, and it might just be because it didn't matter. If one of the semifinals had been 19-18 and the other one had been 7-6, so we ended up with a guy who hit 19 against a guy who hit 7, then I might think, well, that was dumb. But I do after Teoscar batted, he went third, and then in the first round, and then he just had to wait for an hour to find out if he was even going to the second round. So, which was fine. But then I liked in the second round that we know, okay, here's who he has to beat. It's one-on-one, head-to-head. I thought it was great. And then, the drama of the how it came down to in the finals, Bobby Witt is one home run behind, and he hits one that literally hits off the wall in left center field that would have been the game-tying homer. Instead, it ends the game. Teoscar wins. Like it was, they say that you couldn't script this. You could. This is how it would have been scripted. If somebody said, "Write me a really good dramatic movie about the home run derby," this is about how it would have ended.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, it kind of was given, shades of, what was it, Jock versus Vladdy Jr. a couple years ago. That was one of those all-time derby moments that I'm pretty sure most Dodgers fans can really point back to. Like that was a lot better than Hee-Seop Choi back in 2006 or whatever it was. But all the pieces they had, considering like a lot of the stars in the league don't want to do the derby or seem hesitant to do it. They made the best with what they had. I don't think anybody entering it was expecting the final to be Teoscar Hernandez versus Bobby Witt Jr. But hey, they put on a show, and that's the whole point of this thing, putting on a show. So do we give, I guess, some kudos to, was it Fred Rodman? However you say
Fred Rodman?
Fred
Rodman.
I do backwards names very poorly.
I assume this was somebody else's idea and they snuck it past him. They put a different paper on top to have him sign it. They thought that he thought he was signing let's light all the players on fire in the middle of the game. That sounds good. I'll sign that.
Even worse uniforms I'm in.
They've learned how to slip good ideas past him without him noticing.
No football, no problem. No NBA, doesn't matter. FanDuel is there with baseball, WNBA, and soon the Olympics. There is plenty to dive into over at FanDuel because they are America's #1 sportsbook. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. The National League has a chance to win back-to-back All-Star games for the first time since they won 3 straight between 2010 and 2012. FanDuel isn't buying it, though. AL favored to win on the money line, -118. Also, 6 of the last 7 All-Star games have had a total score of 7 or less. The over-under on tonight's game, 7.5. I don't know. I'm taking the under, I think. What are you waiting for? Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Catching up with LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference.
Welcome in, man. Making the trip out here to Media Days. What's this all like?
Yeah, I appreciate y'all for having me. It's an unbelievable experience, just getting to represent LSU and what that means, to me and also to my other teammates that are here. It's a really cool experience, and we're all very thankful.
It's got to be crazy for you. I mean, you've sat, you waited your turn, you've waited your opportunity. Now it's your chance to kind of show what you can do. What's the journey kind of been like these last couple years, particularly watching Jaden do special things, winning a Heisman and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's been a process, and I've had to put a lot of faith into God and to trust in Him and His plan for me. And then, getting to watch Jaden and learn different things from him. Obviously, if I have, nearly the amount of success that he was able to have last year, I'll be pretty happy, one of the things, for me, obviously our skill set is very different. So getting to learn, how to interact with my teammates off the field from him, or how to lead, watching him in the building and the way that he interacted day to day. I got to learn a lot from Jaden, and, I'm a big fan of his, and I'm excited for him at the next level.
You guys lose a couple of big-time receivers, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. go on to be first-round picks, but it feels like some of those guys that you were maybe running on second team with, Chris Hilton and some other guys, like you were able to develop that chemistry. So it's kind of like while you move up the depth chart, they move up the depth chart. What's that kind of been like? Because, man, the spring game, it looked like you guys have been playing football for years together.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Getting to experience those different situations with all those guys. Me and Chris Hilton came in together. And there are a couple other guys that I'll be playing with this year that we came in the same class, and, we got to spend a lot of time together. Like you said, from the bottom of the depth chart freshman year, slowly building our ways up to, now starting. And, there's a lot of time there, a lot of time spent there, a lot of relationships that have been built, between me and my teammates, just being around each other at all times as much as possible. And I think that's the biggest part, everything that happens on the field, it all starts with the relationships, that you guys have off the field. So
You get a lot of people who throw out Will Campbell's name out there, and for good reason. I mean, he's a heck of a player. But just how about your offensive line? And, I mean, what is it, 4 or 5 starters coming back?
Yeah, I mean, they're an unbelievable group. Just what they've able to accomplish this offseason so far as just taking control and taking charge as leaders, it's something special. And, I don't even know how to describe, their group. They call themselves the Bomb Squad, and they're just, they're nasty. They're on time to everything. They're early to everything. They work harder than anybody, and they push all of us to try and catch them. And I think that's been the best thing is when you have that type of group and that type of leadership up front in the offensive line unit, it does, wonders, more than people know. And Coach Davis does an unbelievable job with them as well, just preparing them to play, preparing them to be ready to lead.
I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but the expectations of playing quarterback now at LSU, I mean, there were many years it was kind of we'll see. But, I mean, you get Joe through there, you get Jaden through there. I mean, now there's an expectation. You got to put up numbers. You got to make things happen at that position.
Yeah, pressure is a privilege, and obviously we've had very successful quarterbacks here lately. And, I understand that there's a responsibility and an expectation, but, I try not to think too much about it. I mean, there's an expectation just being the starting quarterback at LSU in general, of a standard that you have to hold yourself to and who you represent. And so, I'm very blessed. I thank God every morning when I wake up that this is the life I get to live right now. And I'm hopefully, I am where I'm supposed to be at. And so I'm very thankful and I'm very excited to get to, go out there and compete.
Sometimes you lose an offense coordinator. It's a little tough. It's a little bit of an adjustment, but at least you guys got the full bowl prep to go through with Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton. And again, those guys have been there. It's not like you brought in somebody from the outside. So how much does that continuity kind of help? While yes, the label is new OC, it's guys who've been there.
Yeah, Coach Sloan and I, we have a really, really good relationship. And, he's been very honest and very hard on me since the moment that, he got there. And so, just getting to work with him, he set a plan out for me early and what I needed to improve on. And he's done an unbelievable job of holding me to it and helping me, find ways to improve every part of my game. And so, as he's taken over, it's only, just gotten better. Just being able to have those conversations with him between a coordinator and a quarterback and, also a quarterback coach. But you have that relationship there that's been there for 3 years now. And so, he can always be honest with me. And, I feel like, we're at a point where I can be honest with him and tell him how I feel about certain situations. And he's going to give me honest feedback. And so, if you've been to an LSU practice, you've heard Coach Sloan, rip into me a couple times. So I really enjoy our relationship and I really appreciate it. And I think he's very, very good at what he does, and I think we're going to be very, very successal because of him.
I feel like your dad may have told them, "Hey, rip into him."
Yeah. They have some conversations about how they're going to discipline me. It feels like so. That's how my dad was on me when I was a kid. So I think they bond over that almost.
It's crazy too. I mean, to have a dad who played the position. I mean, it's got to help so much because he does have that playing experience that he can help you with. But also in the same aspect, he's a little bit harder because he knows what it takes and he knows where you got to get.
Right. Yeah. No. It's been unreal. I really, really appreciate the relationship that I have with my dad. He was able to accomplish everything that I dream of accomplishing. So, just getting feedback from him, and he's kind of helped me see the path and see the way at certain times. And if I ever feel lost, just a long conversation with him will fix it, and he'll get me back in the right headspace. So, I'm extremely grateful for the relationship that I've built with my dad over the years, and how close we are. And he's very honest with me, and he always helps me, find the truth in every situation. So.
What was that like for you growing up in the household you did where, I mean, obviously your dad knows the position, he played it, but then also, too, you see the coaching side of it as well. And for all the moving around and everything you guys had to do as a kid.
Yeah, I'm extremely blessed of the life that I got to live as a young kid. I moved 12 different times. My dad was a part of, extremely top programs while I was growing up, Alabama, Florida, Michigan, and offensive coordinator at those places. And I was a 12-year-old kid running around these campuses, and running around these practice fields, watching players like Jake Locker and A.J. McCarron, Drew Stanton. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so, I idolized these guys when I was a kid. And I idolized my dad and how he was interacting with them. So, it's always been a dream of mine just to be in the shoes that I'm in now. So I'm extremely blessed, and being able to see it as a kid, it kind of prepared me, I guess you could say, for this moment now.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I talked with Harold about this before you joined us of, normally teams, whenever you're asked about huge games, the response is, oh, well, we got to play so-and-so first. That hasn't been an issue for you guys. I mean, how about just being able to get that immediate strong test right out the gate against SC?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game. Obviously, they got a good football team. They have a very good football coach, and they're going to come prepared. They're going to come ready to play. And so, for us, I think, the biggest focus this offseason has been about building our culture. And it starts with Coach Kelly's process, and how we interact every single day and the way that we do things. So I think that process will lead us, day by day to be ready, come September. So we're focused on our process right now.
What'd you see out of the defense? Obviously, I think everybody knows it was a little bit not up to the LSU standard for a good bit of last year, but a whole new staff. And Coach Kelly sends a message bringing in all new guys. But, I mean, dudes from Blake Baker as the DC to Bo Davis on the D-line, Kevin Peoples, Corey Raymond. I mean, these are all big-time hires. What have you seen, at least just tangible differences so far in that defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an extremely talented group. And, I think these coaches that Coach was able to bring in are all very, very good. Coach Baker's system is unreal. Challenged me every single day of spring ball. It tests me every single day, even now into the summer. And it's something that's to be honest, it's hard to play against. And you have to always be aware of different things. And then when you look at the talent that we have outside of that, we have guys like Perk, Greg Penn, and the guys that have came in at safety, and Major Burns, and the corners that have continued to develop and work. We've got a great group, a great scheme, a great system. And, I think that, I'm very excited to see what they're going to be able to accomplish, and hopefully, quiet a lot of haters.
You like wearing that red no contact jersey when Perk is closing it out,
ain't no doubt about that. That red, it feels nice wearing that red when I see Perk. So.
Talking with Garrett Nussmeier, LSU quarterback. So as you prepare for the season, what are some things you start to do? I mean, obviously you can only do so much on the practice field. Is it really just kind of taking care of your body, adding muscle when you need to, eating healthy, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into playing quarterback or playing any position really in the SEC. Obviously, you have to keep your body in top tier shape because, this is the closest thing you can get to the NFL. I mean, this is the SEC. Guys are big, guys are fast, guys are physical. It's very, very talented players. And so, when you get hit, it hurts, to be real, it hurts,
yeah.
And when you take constant hits, you got to make sure that you prepare yourself in the off season and keep your body healthy enough so that you can take those hits over and over again.
And when Garrett Nussmeier's not playing football, what are you doing?
I've been working on my golf game a little bit.
Okay.
My golf game this summer has been not nearly as good as it was last summer, but I'm pretty much given up because I can't play basically from September to January. So
right.
It's a February to August type of thing, and these past couple months have not been great for me.
Short game, long game, what's the strength?
So last year, my long game and my irons were amazing, and I could not putt or could not chip. And this summer, all of a sudden, I can chip from anywhere and I can putt from anywhere, but I can't hit a fairway to save my life. So I don't know what happened, but hopefully we put it together next summer. Hopefully it all comes together. So
got to figure that part out.
Yeah, I got to put 2 and 2.
The SEC is not out on expansion.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So Greg Sankey was up first Monday at SEC Media Days, and as you might expect, I and others asked him about realignment and the landscape. And he kept going back to one line that made very clear the SEC is not out on expansion. If they were actively seeking to add Florida State and Clemson, if that were their number one desire, I don't know that we would get a lot of direct public comments from the commissioner about their mindset being, yeah, we want to add these schools, we're waiting for them to get out, because that tips your hand. And then if you don't wind up getting them for some reason, then the league perceptually ends up looking like they lost somehow, even though it's the SEC, best conference in America. So the line that he kept going back to is, we are 16 teams strong. We are 16 today. We are 16 tomorrow. That was his quote. He had other quotes, like, I'm not a recruiter. I'm focused on the 16 teams. Now, these are not answers that make you think, oh, wow, they're going to go out. They're going to aggressively pursue Florida State. They're going to lock up the state of Florida and South Carolina. They're going to get Clemson. They're going to do. It's also decisively not a refute of the notion that they could expand. He did not say, we are not going to expand. He did not say, we will never go beyond 16 teams. He did not say, we have no interest in doing any of that. He said, a matter-of-fact statement, essentially. It was commissioner speak. It was coach speak, which leaves the door open to swing both ways. They could add Florida State and Clemson. They could not add Florida State and Clemson. And he wouldn't look like he has to go back on his statement or that he was double talking or speaking out of the side of his mouth or anything of the sort. We are 16 teams strong. We are 16 today. We are 16 tomorrow. That was an interesting word. What does that mean to you? I was recently reading Stephen Breyer's book, The Retired Supreme Court Justice. I read all sorts of nonfiction political books and whatnot, and it was an interesting read. And the book is called Reading the Constitution, and he talks a lot about the law, which is a career path I once upon a time considered. Part of the reason I was interested in reading the book, and constitutional interpretation. And one thing that he alludes to in the book, Retired Justice Breyer, is that he looks at what a statute or what a law, not just what it says, but what it is intended to do at the time of its enactment. That guides his judicial philosophy, or guided his judicial philosophy when he made rulings over the course of his career, going all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so I thought about the word tomorrow in the context of that book. Because if you take the literal interpretation, it would be, well, that means we have 16 teams today, Monday, January 15th. We're going to have 16 teams tomorrow, Tuesday, January 16th. That's what the literal interpretation of his words mean. But is that what his actual meaning is? This is not Greg Sankey's first rodeo. This is not the first time he's navigated these sorts of waters. I thought he spoke very well about the state of college athletics and navigating the issues. I think he does an excellent job of projecting how sincere he is in wanting to make this the best situation for fans, for community, for student athletes, for everybody like that. And the word tomorrow didn't appear to just mean the word tomorrow, but it could. And it is open-ended. And he went back to it several times. We are focused on our 16 teams. That's the same sort of language that Tony Petitti used before they added Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten. I don't recall the exact quote off the top of my head, but he said, we are focused on these members here, which is essentially the sort of non-answer that provides cover to both allow you to talk about expansion with your presidents, and if an opportunity comes about that you feel is beneficial to your conference, to then act on said move, and also allows you to not make any move whatsoever because you feel that your conference is in a good enough place. You don't want to potentially dilute any revenue to your existing members, and you don't want to go forward with making any of those sorts of move. And the comments that these commissioners give in these instances often allow that door to swing both ways. Now, Brett Yormark has had some very public and pointed and open remarks about, we are being aggressive. We are being shot right. Oh, this is just over the last couple of years generally. He's been more specific with it because I think his conference has needed that sort of attitude. They've had to be on the prowl. They've had to be aggressive. Greg Sankey spoke about the regionality of college sports in the landscape, and I asked him if he could ever see a world in which they needed to expand beyond their footprint, because he talked about the value of still being called the SEC, and that's still meaning something because they haven't extended their geographic footprint or gone outside of what the southeastern part of the United States is by adding Texas and Oklahoma. They've just really strengthened their foothold in that part of it. And he gave, again, kind of a non-answer to my question about, I'm not going to speculate about what it is, but I feel like this is something we are very proud of, but we feel like we're in a strong position right now, and they are. I don't think that I think it is just commissioner speak at some level, but I don't think it's just commissioner speak, because he can actually mean that speaking as the commissioner of the SEC, because if he's committed to keeping it a regional conference, they can do that. He said, another one of his quotes was, "We can stay at 16 teams for a long, long time." That's true. because of the quality of programs and the caliber of programs that they do have in the SEC right now, they can stay there for a long, long time. But again, notice that it's not specific, which is why my takeaway was he's not shutting the idea down. He's just not aggressively pursuing it. He was very passive in the way he spoke about Florida State and Clemson. Yeah, no, we pay attention, but I'm not, all in the weed. I'm not diving deep into all this sort of stuff. That might actually be the case. They definitely have an eye on it. If they feel like they could get, maybe it comes down to price and what the cost is to add Florida State and Clemson, if at all. But if they feel like it's the right move for the league, the SEC is not completely shut down for business. They might be focused on the 16 teams now until Florida State and Clemson come along. And maybe they decide, we'd actually like to go get them. And if the SEC and the Big 12 are both bidding and the Big 10, frankly, if they're all bidding for Florida State and Clemson, the SEC is probably going to win that. Probably going to win. The Big 12 only winds up with them if they are so dead set on leaving the ACC that they would raise hundreds of millions of dollars somehow to pay the exit fee to leave the conference, and then they decide, we just don't want to be in this league so badly. We'll go to a league that doesn't have as much revenue and is really on similar footing and isn't a massive upgrade and whatnot compared to the conference that we're in right now. Maybe they want to stick it to the ACC that badly. Maybe it's a leverage play to get the ACC to renegotiate their contract with ESPN, or try to get ESPN to figure out how they can get more money, more revenue into the conference, because that deal was signed so long ago. It'd probably be a little bit different valuation-wise if it were put on the open market right here, right now. The ACC's media rights, I mean. So, last thing that Greg Sankey said that I wanted to address was he emphasized the importance of rivalries, and I touched on this a little bit on yesterday's show in the SEC-ACC slate. Put me in the camp of I love rivalries, and they are what separate college football from the NFL. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. Our big rival is the 49ers. I don't feel 1/10 or even a 50th of the rivalry juice between the Seahawks and 49ers that I feel watching college rivalries that I don't even have an affiliation with. When I watch the Iron Bowl or Georgia, Florida, or just keep going down the list. Oklahoma, Texas, which is now an SEC game. I really appreciate that Greg Sankey is emphasizing the importance of rivalries, that they've brought back Texas and Texas A&M. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. Those two fan bases loathe one another. It's great. It's high-quality entertainment. And leaning into that, I think, is a really, really strong play for the SEC and any college football conference. You should always lean in to your big rivalry games. Hype them up, highlight them, showcase them, put them on primetime, make them big-time matchups. That's what people are looking for. Those are the sorts of days that you don't just plan entire weeks around, you plan entire months around to make sure that you're there for the entire week. Tailgating days in advance with your friends maybe, and extending it to, making it into a golf trip or whatever. Those are the games that we're always looking for. And I love the emphasis the SEC is placing. So with regards to the schedule, I am fully in support of having 2 protected rivalries for every SEC team. I think that's a great idea, because there are 2 teams that I can look at for a number of schools and say, you should play them every year in the SEC. Alabama, for instance, should play Auburn every year, of course, and should play Georgia every year. When you look at what those 2 programs have meant to the SEC in college football in the last 10 years or so, when the new schedules start coming out, like Oklahoma and Texas are going to play every year. Are you telling me that's the only team you'd like to see Texas play every year? Like either Georgia or Alabama. If you're going to have these realigned conferences, you might as well lean into, let's have the big games. Let's ensure that these big games are going to take place every year. Let's start to foment a rivalry between Texas and insert, X, Y, and Z SEC school. That should probably be Texas's other protected rival, is Texas A&M. Regionality, I'm here for it. Texas should play Texas A&M and Oklahoma every year. Oklahoma should play Texas, and there isn't an as obvious one there for Oklahoma to play every year necessarily. Maybe Oklahoma fans can let me know. But I think the leaning into rivalries is great. I think it is just a fantastic element of college football. I am here for it. And I think 2 protected rivalries is the right number.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on your tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even up to an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with the Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app today, and new users can get $20 off of their first purchase with promo code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Summer League, the standouts, who's been good.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast.
Vegas Summer League is in full effect. A lot of our crew is out there taking in the sights and sounds and the Dairy Queen blizzards, which is what I always spend my time doing in Summer League, schmoozing, talking. I've actually watched more Summer League this year, having skipped it, than I did when I was there, because I would always like talk to people. It's like, oh, I gotta go. I'm meeting this person that works for a team, or oh, I'm chatting with this media friend that I've known forever. Oh, I'm getting lunch with so and so. And so it's a networking event. And as I'm not there this year, I needed a summer off. And so I've been to a ton of them. And there's a little bit of like, oh man, it would be kind of cool to see that. I have watched a lot of basketball, and to be honest with you, I'm pretty impressed with some of the rookies that we've seen, David. Zachary Risache for the Hawks, they talked about him on the show last week. I think on Sunday, rather. Really good start, I thought. I thought that he looked much more in control than I thought he would. I don't know that he's going to look like a number one pick. I don't know that he's going to go down as this type of franchise cornerstone. But I will say that I was pretty impressed by the fact that he does look like he is playing at a comfort level in terms of his control and finishing ability and versatility, where, he's going to be able to do a lot of things to help Atlanta win games. And that's honestly pretty, I think that's encouraging, given that he was the number one pick in what was universally called a very weak draft.
Yeah, I think that take is going to age badly. He's not Anthony Bennett, right? I think, as long as you're stable and you can provide, like you said, winning basketball, like you contribute to that. Like that's what Atlanta needs more than anything else. Yeah, would it have been great if you could hit a home run? Sure. But I don't know that home run player necessarily was available. Better to get a guy that's more of a multi-tool player, a guy who can do little things here and there, raises your ceiling and doesn't lower your floor. Like I think those kinds of things are important. So to me, the fact that he had a solid showing, I think it's a win. I think so. I know it's not as juicy, it's not as fun, as sexy as, Wembanyama having monster performances as a rookie or anything like that. But that's generational. That's once in a lifetime. You don't expect those kinds of things. You shouldn't. And I think we were all kind of spoiled by that performance last year and the expectations that came with him, that he met those expectations and the hype that surrounded it. But either way, though, for the Hawks, I think it's a good pick. It's a solid pick, even if it's not the most sexy, brightest name available.
Another rookie that really caught my eye is Reed Shepherd for the Houston Rockets. 31 minutes a game, 22.5 points per game so far. He's shooting 56% from the field, 46% from three, and only averaging 3 free throws per contest in these 2 games. How about 6 dimes to just 3 turnovers per game, along with 5 boards? Houston, look, this show, David and I's show have had a lot of interesting things to say about the Rockets core through the years. I'm going to be very interested to see how this works, because they, between Amin Thompson, who I think is still going to continue to be one of the better players to come out of last year's draft. I still believe in Amin Thompson. He showed some real things when he came back from injury last year. Obviously, Alperen Şengün was an all-star level player last season for long stretches. Jalen Green had a good month, so good for him, and that turned everyone around on him for a month, and then it kind of faded. I'm just gonna be very curious to see what happens. Cam Whitmore's killing it for Houston too.
Yeah.
Like this second unit with Tari Eason, Thompson, Reed Shepard, they are that second unit for Houston, as the kids say, slaps. Like I am very excited about this bench unit for Houston, and I'm very curious to see what that means for how the Rockets grow going forward. There's all this talk of Kevin Durant and like the idea of them trading. And I do think that Houston, based off of what I've heard, that the Rockets would very much like to accelerate the growth process by bringing in a star, like a verifiable superstar caliber player. I think they would jump on that. But what's kind of interesting here is they're going to be able to do that necessarily without needing the draft equity that the Phoenix Suns picks provide after swapping them out to give Brooklyn their picks back. There's a little bit here of they now have so many talented young guys. Those are going to be valuable picks because they're not going to be able to pay them all. So I'm just very curious to see what happens with Houston here, but phenomenal start for Reed Shepard, who looks like he's going to be an impact guy from day one.
About Shepard, I'm just curious to see what he looks like in a Heat uniform after they trade for Jimmy, because I think that's going to be an interesting fit there. I guess they have to find another taker for Tyler Hero. You can't have too many Kentucky guys like that, but I think it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
Are you ready for
is that too hard to take? I don't.
Oh, I mean, are you ready for Jalen Green on the Heat and for you to have to deal with that? Is that?
Yes, I am. I can't wait.
How's that going to go? 6th man of the year, Jalen. Future 6th man of the year, Jalen Green.
You said it, not me.
Talking about, we gave that takeout a long time ago. Speaking of the Heat, by the way, your top leading scorer after one game, Jaime Jaquez, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 5 dimes for Jaquez. I mostly bring this up, David. There are these guys that come in second year and it's like, oh yeah, they don't belong here. They're too good. Like they should not be here. For the team I cover, the Nuggets, the positive for this is that Julian Strawther looks like, Julian Strawther doesn't need to be here anymore. He's made the leap. He's looked good enough. You can probably shut him down. They may give him some more minutes at point guard and let him play 1 or 2 more, but he's heading down that direction. More directly, I kind of commented on this when I was previewing Summer League over on another podcast that I do. I was talking about how, like, look, Miami's team is always competent. They're always well coached. They always find good talent, and they're always going to compete. They beat the Lakers the other night. With Miami, for you, and with where the Heat are at specifically, they could use a couple of guys popping, like making big strides.
Yeah.
How much do you look at Summer League as an opportunity to at least have a step in that process? Like, is it a serious step in developing a roster to outperform expectations?
I think so, for Miami specifically, because they've lost. We've kind of made this point on our podcast. Their pipeline has been somewhat depleted. They lost Caleb Martin this year. They lost Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. I mean, they've had players kind of just that they've developed over the years that have had those moments specifically. Like Max Strus a couple seasons ago, when nobody even knew who the heck he was, popped in Summer League, had a game-winning shot. Next thing you know, he's earned some more minutes on the Heat rotation. It coincided with Duncan Robinson's slip a little bit, but either way, he wound up capitalizing that obviously into a nice contract last year. So for teams that are looking to add some kind of talent through that pipeline, I think it's really important. Miami obviously not able to make many changes this offseason because they made them last year, and adding Terry Rozier at the trade deadline, that kind of capped them for what they could do. And it's important to get those kind of players to stand out and develop. As far as Jaquez, look, he was in Las Vegas anyway, playing for Team USA Select. So he was already there. And he was like, you know what? I'll stay in town for a couple more days. He's only going to play a couple more games. He doesn't want to risk injury. But it's great to have him continuing to grow, because I think he's going to play a more substantial role with the Heat next year, depending what happens with Jimmy Butler's future with the team.
No football, no problem. No NBA, doesn't matter. FanDuel is there with baseball, WNBA, and soon the Olympics. There is plenty to dive into over at FanDuel because they are America's #1 sportsbook. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. The National League has a chance to win back-to-back All-Star games for the first time since they won 3 straight between 2010 and 2012. FanDuel isn't buying it, though. AL favored to win on the money line, -118. Also, 6 of the last 7 All-Star games have had a total score of 7 or less. The over-under on tonight's game, 7.5. I don't know. I'm taking the under, I think. What are you waiting for? Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
The latest Jordan Addison incident, arrested for suspicion of DUI over the weekend.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast.
This was late Saturday into early Sunday in LA, falls asleep at the wheel and blocks a lane of traffic near Los Angeles Airport, LAX. And he's been arrested on suspicion of DUI. We don't know much more than that. So they mentioned he was in a Rolls Royce. This is not the Lambo of last year. This is the Rolls Royce.
Yeah,
but this is now 2 strikes, 2 different vehicles, 2 incidents involving Jordan Addison. He, of course, drove 140 in the Twin Cities last year in the Lambo. He did not receive any official discipline for that. He will be receiving discipline for this one. Suspicion of DUI. We haven't heard a blood alcohol level. We aren't actually entirely sure, unless there's something that I missed in the reports, that it was alcohol. Could be a different substance. Either way, Arif, we'll start with you on this. Your initial reaction to the Jordan Addison news over the weekend.
So I mean, there's like a reason I didn't tweet very much about this story, and I think it's because of the lack of details, right? So we don't know, what exactly had happened. I do know that generally speaking, if you are found asleep in your vehicle on a highway, that probably a substance of some sort was involved. Probably a substance of some sort is not enough for me to start firing off tweet takes, but I think we have like a decent understanding. I'm open to the possibility that there are things that we don't know yet, but I do think it is probable that something is amiss. And if that's the case, right, and it's a reasonable if that's the case, it's beyond disappointing, right? Because we know about his history of driving 140 on a highway. And at the time I suggested that the reaction to him driving 140 was surprisingly voracious, right? People were very mad at the time, and I thought, hey, he made a huge mistake and he should be, disciplined for it, and we have a right to be disappointed in him. But I thought it was surprising how mad everyone was at the time. But I think here there are significantly greater reasons to be really upset with what he did, not just because he's already had a moving violation in a car that put people at risk, but you very recently learned that a teammate passed away due to what police suspect, at least, a DUI or a drunk driving incident. Like, this, more than any other time, is a time that you would hope that, people who knew Kyrie Jackson would be at least a little bit more careful when it came to their behavior behind the wheel. And I think it's fair to say that if this was something that he had intentionally done, taken a substance and started driving, which it seems to be, again, I don't know, but it seems to be the case, then if that's the case, then it's beyond disappointing. It's insulting to Kyrie Jackson's memory, honestly, that this happened so recently after Jackson's passing. And so I'll reserve, my anger for when more details emerge, but it's impossible to view this in any other context outside of what just happened with Kyrie Jackson and what Addison did last year. Those are the 2 most present incidents in my mind as we learn this news.
Spinman.
Imagine leaving your house, you can't find your keys, so you got to grab the set from your second car. The second car in the garage collecting dust is a Rolls Royce. I'm stuck at that part. Unbelievable. I'll just echo what Arif said. To be fair, still waiting for all the details to come out, which that could be an hour from now, that could be a day, that could be a week. But as of now, just knowing what we know, just how it's being presented on paper, it's pretty brutal, man. This one's tough to spin, tough to swallow. It's bad look from just about every single angle. He's only been a professional football player for 1.5 off seasons. This is already his second big off the field mistake, both having to do with getting behind the wheel of a car and potentially putting other people's lives at risk. And obviously, and Arif already touched on this, but obviously, the thing that kind of stings and hurts the most, we've all been just very deeply reminded just in the past week how dangerous how selfish that is to not just yourself, but everybody else on the road too. So, yeah, especially in the face of all that stuff, which is still super fresh. It's also super raw. It's on everybody's minds. Like the dust hasn't even settled from all that yet. It's hard not to think, dude, what are we doing? What's going on? Because it's such a preventable mistake. You know, if he's found guilty or pleads guilty, etc. And again, we'll see. I mean, he'll get his day in court, but and again, don't really want to take what little info we have and run too far with it because things could change. Never know till you know. But either way, if any of this is even remotely accurate, I mean, he's definitely looking at a suspension, whether that's handed down by the NFL or by the Vikings. If it's the NFL, we know how that goes. That probably wouldn't unfold for months and months and months down the road. But just going off similar cases in the past, Marcus May was a guy who was brought up. He pleaded no contest to a D-dub last year. He got suspended 3 games. Wes Phillips, obviously, another one right in the backyard not long ago, got suspended by the team 3 weeks after he pleaded down to reckless driving, I believe. So it feels like if he does get suspended when this is all said and done, 3 games or 3 weeks, however you want to say it, probably like the ground floor. But being this is already his second offense, being it's coming off the heels of the whole Kyrie Jackson incident, you know, pending what the ultimate charge is, something like 4 to 6 games could definitely be on the table as well. So we'll see.
Interesting. I don't know if there's precedent for teams getting overly involved with this process. Feels like they usually let the league handle it. I think the context around this might be an exception where the Vikings would step in because of last year's incident plus the Kyrie Jackson context. Still strikes me as something that'll be handled by the league. I don't know for sure. Luke Braun. Oh, and I did want to add too, you said 1.5 years of pro football, Luke Inman. You know what Jordan Addison got presumably paid to play at USC that last year? $3.5 million. Which is actually more than he makes on average with the Vikings. Wow. So 1.5, maybe make it 2.5.
Yeah, maybe make it 2.5.
That's very funny.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, he averages like 3.3, I think, with Minnesota.
Yeah, I like everybody else said, I will wait to pass too much judgment until we have details and confirmations of things. The initial moments when a story like this comes out can be very murky and can give you the wrong idea a lot. So I don't mind being the last person to be mad, but if you're mad because it's a DUI and because of Kyrie Jackson, that's fair. That you shouldn't do that, but you can't do anything about what Jordan Addison does. You just do stuff about what you do. So just one more reason not to drive drunk. Don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the spirit of talking about the uncertainty, not knowing exactly the details, we can ask the question, okay, it's interesting. He was released 2 hours after getting arrested. It seems relatively quick if he was intoxicated.
Yeah, if you were like super wasted, they usually would keep you in the drunk tank, no?
Yes,
yeah, make you sleep it off.
Agreed. That's the one kind of, I don't want to call it a red flag, but it just does seem kind of
But like,
odd, because
I don't need
right,
to be an investigator on this. I'll just wait until until time.
We'll find out soon.
It's an interesting detail that could suggest a million other things that we hadn't considered.
Yeah,
it's really difficult to kind of parse what that
It is
means.
somewhat out of the norm, though, I will say that. Somewhat
but yeah,
out of
I mean,
the norm.
I think that it's always important to just kind of understand that new details can emerge that will change your understanding, right? Because there's actually a lot of legitimate reasons that somebody might end up asleep behind the wheel. That's not their fault. I mean, some people develop new conditions that give them narcolepsy, right? I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm saying that there's always a case where something emerges that changes your understanding or context of a situation. I think it's likely that Addison probably did something wrong here. But until we know more, and knowing that the police haven't released a BAC, knowing that the police released Addison fairly early instead of letting him sleep off whatever he might have been under the influence of, there's already the possibility that there's something a little bit different about the story. Maybe not. Maybe the police just did that. I don't know. But it's always important to understand there could always be a detail that will change your understanding of a story like this.
Game Time makes getting to the ballpark even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on your tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even up to an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And with the Game Time guarantee, it means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the free app today, and new users can get $20 off of their first purchase with promo code Locked On. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
NFL rookies are heading to training camp this week.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. You know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and what the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. If you can hear my voice, go ahead, hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On NFL Draft. Today's show, like I said, man, is action-packed. We are getting ready for training camp, DP. So you know what that means? These rookie quarterbacks, they are going under the spotlight. Yes, we are putting that big light on them, man. So we're going to talk about the fast start for Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, the expectations for Bo Nix, who will probably be the starter, DP, for the Denver Broncos, and then Drake May. How much time does he have in New England to be able to get that ship righted up there in Boston? DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Keith, let's start with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams needs to have a fast start to training camp, and there's two reasons why. Number one, I think we kind of the elephant in the room that typically happens during draft season is the pre-draft process, right? Generational tag. People say he was a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence, who won the Natty, right? All the stuff that we heard about Caleb and everything we saw from him, I think that's a part of it. People are going to expect him to be the guy we saw at USC, Houdini, that superstar type caliber player. But my second reason for it, and remember last year, I kind of called my shot with the Houston Texans. I didn't call playoffs, but I said, I think they're going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. I didn't think they were going to be drafting first overall. When I look at this Chicago Bears team, I think that this is a playoff caliber team. I think this is a playoff caliber roster. They have all the recipe. They have all the ingredients for a playoff recipe, Keith. I think all you need now is for Caleb Williams to start fast, gain that confidence within the offense, gain that confidence within himself. We know he's a confident young man altogether, but you know, you've been around these players. You've watched the natural growth of a quarterback like a Joe Burrow as he's learning that playbook and he's learning the ins and outs of that offense. Now I know it like the back of my hand, and I can make calls without the OC having to tell me what he's seeing. I'm seeing it already on my own. I'm looking forward to Caleb Williams getting that, just hitting the ground running. Because when you have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, you know, DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert in the backfield, right? They have so much weapons around them that Justin Fields didn't have, right? Then the quarterbacks probably before Justin Fields didn't have. I just think Caleb Williams needs to hit the ground running because everything is set up for him to just play ball and help this team win a very not even have to win a very tough NFC North, but they can make the playoffs in an NFC that isn't that strong when we look at the AFC.
Yeah, so I'm with every point that you made. And DP, when it comes down to Caleb Williams, I have one name, two words. Shane Waldron, right? The offensive
Yeah.
coordinator for the Chicago Bears. He's going to be so important for what they do offensively, right? And it's for Shane, and we always talk about this. I say this on this podcast. It's for the offensive coordinator to mold his offense around what he's been given, right? The truly good head coaches, I've seen them be able to do that. Play to your players' strength. Some of the things I've seen with the Seattle Seahawks and why Geno Smith took off was he made things simple. So I'm expecting him to be able to do that for Caleb Williams. And I agree with you. I think a fast start is needed because it's going to be the morale of this team, right? And a fast start for Caleb Williams he doesn't have the complete 69% of his passes, right? You go in there, you give me 64, 65 as a rookie, right? In first few weeks, throw a couple of touchdowns, but you manage the football. We able to play good defense and it results in wins. I am all for that, right? And I think that's the fast start that they need because, like you said, the Chicago Bears can make some headway in this NFC. And honestly, the NFC North, right, with obviously the Packers and the Lions you feel great about, but the Vikings in the same spot y'all in, right? You look at the NFC East, right? Not that doggone good, right? The NFC West, NFC West is loaded. The NFC West,
Yeah.
that's going to be the problem. So you have to figure out what the NFC South, and then the NFC South is. God bless that situation, right?
Yeah. Who knows what the NFC South is really going to be? But you said something that resonated with me. You said just go out there and manage games. And typically, when you see guys that are talented like a Caleb Williams, he can do all the superhuman, the Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes stuff. But it's like, can I get you to just be Brock Purdy? And I don't want any San Francisco 49ers to take that in the wrong way. But knowing how to manage the game, right? Check in and out of runs. Like, hey, if it's not advantageous to this passing play, check out of it. Hand the ball off. Like, don't put yourself and your team at risk.
Yeah, and it's going to be something going back to the draft, right? And we did his draft profile. That was one of the first things I talked about, right? Is like Caleb just simply taking the layups. And I like this offense from what I've seen in Seattle from Shane Waldron because there are built-in layups into this offense, right? You don't always have to chuck it 50 yards down the field. When I was talking about managing the offense, I was not saying, oh, you just have to become the game manager, right? It's managing, hey, understanding down in distance, right? This is where I'm going to go with the football. I can take off and run and pick up an extra couple yards. When they had Justin Fields, DP, it was a bunch of silly mistakes, right? But with Caleb Williams, who he is as a prospect, and then you're talking about inserting him into the situation, I think it can play for Caleb to have a really good start and a really good, I guess, showing as a rookie because like you talked about, they drafted well and then all the other offensive weapons that they acquired are proven veterans, and then he just has to kind of continue to elevate.
No, Shane Waldron, last year for Seattle, they ran 70% of their offense was in shotgun per Sports Info Solution. So you expect to see that for Caleb Williams. They were mostly in 11. So that's what 3 wide receivers, a running back, and the tight end. And that's kind of where Caleb Williams is comfortable as well. So with these weapons they have with an offensive coordinator that's going to use the personnel packages that fits, I like it. Keith, let's jump to Jaden Daniels. Does he need to, how important is it for him to get off to a fast start, or could he kind of take his time to get there?
Could he take his time to get there? DP, this is a what have you done for me lately business. There's no such thing as taking your time to get there. Especially when you're talking about being with the Washington Commanders, you're talking about one of the franchises that they have a weird foundation, right? Because there was a period of time where they were really good in football, right? And people respected the football acumen, a lot of history, right? But then they've quickly been known for doing silly stuff, right? Like it transitioned. And so for an organization with that, I don't think you have time. They have to show that they picked the right pick, right? And it's almost, how do I want to put this? I get the underline that Commanders fans are excited about Jaden Daniels, but they also still remember RG3 in the back of their head, right? And they're still wondering, like, man, are we going to mess this thing up? And so I think that's where it's at. But DP, I want to jump all the way into this conversation, and we're about to bump against time. So this is what we're going to do, man. We're going to transition, but we're going to pick this Jaden Daniels conversation back up because we'll talk about what are the expectations for Jaden Daniels as a rookie quarterback from when he was at LSU in his draft profile, and then what to expect as far as what the Commanders have put around him through the draft lens. So coming up next, man, we're talking Jaden Daniels and those Washington Commanders.